Hey everyone, in this week's episode of Next Level Healing, we have Chris Wyllie. He is the neuroscientist who has conducted over 5,000 QEEG brain scans, and he shows us how hypnosis, NLP, nootropics literally rewires our brains. You don't want to miss this one. So this is a rare opportunity to get to ask Chris some questions. He is a neuroscientist who has performed over 5,000 QEEG brain scans and is literally showing how interventions like NLP and hypnotherapy literally changes your brainwaves, which is no surprise to me because I watch how people get over all kinds of issues like addiction and allergies and serious things like Lyme, mold, babesia, even Parkinson's symptoms happily can reverse if we can get the brain waves into a more balanced and optimal state. Welcome, Shirley from Maryland. So, Chris, do you want to just take it away and let us know what your research is revealing and the book that you've got coming out, and what people can expect mentally, physically, spiritually? We got more people pouring in. We're just a few minutes past the hour here. But what can people expect when they do interventions that allow the brain waves to become more coherent, more robust, more healthy? What are healthy brain waves, and how do we get them, and how do we avoid getting out of sync? What are the biggest goodies that you've come across in the last years and months of your studies?
Absolutely. And really, my journey was born out of pure necessity. And I had a brain that was in big trouble with severe anxiety, panic attacks, addictive tendencies. Because let's face it, we're born into the world and we're given our brain. And we unconsciously learn and absorb. But it's not until we, get into our late teens where we start to become more conscious and more inquisitive as to who am I? What do I really want in this life? And why am I the way I am? And by that time, our brain has already been profoundly wired both by biology and by our social conditioning.
Can you highlight that just a minute? Because you really did have some profound struggles, and I think people are always inspired when they hear of others that have come out of really difficult times. Can you highlight what that was like for you?
Whenever we're dealing with mental problems, for me, it was severe anxiety, panic attacks, addictive tendencies. It's all consuming. You are totally consumed and stuck in that existence, and your brain is stuck in particular neurological patterns. And it wasn't for me until I was hospitalized. I was at 40 pounds underweight. I'm 6'2". I was down to 140 pounds. I was totally emaciated, broken down. And it was that moment in time where I realized I had to figure out how to heal and rewire my brain. And everything I do has been born out of a necessity to heal and rewire my brain. So everything from brain imaging, brain mapping, neurofeedback, NLP. I haven't learned these because it was an intellectual endeavor. I did it because I needed practical tools to rewire my brain. And we hear the term mental health these days. Now, of course, the question is, what is mental health and how do you actually build it? And how do you know if you have mental health? Because let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, how can you really know if you have mental health? And this is where our mental health is a product of our brain health, and they're intimately connected. And you see, when we have mental problems, it's associated with imbalances in the brain, specific brainwave imbalances. And we get stuck in those imbalances. And one of the hallmarks of mental health is creating more balanced, dynamic brainwave activity. So it's almost like a car. You can shift up to fifth gear when you need fast waves to focus, to really lock in. But you can also shift down to those slower waves, theta waves, alpha waves, when it comes time where you need memory, and also relaxation. So I think for everyone listening to this here is we all have our own personal kryptonite, whether that's anxiety-related problems, whether it's depression-related problems, whether it's addictive tendencies. And really your job here listening to this is to identify what that kryptonite is, what that weak point is, and then go in and try to create the brainwave balance so that way overall you have more flexibility. So I'm going to, try my best, in this short period of time to dive into practical techniques that you can do to create better brainwave balance.
I know you could talk to us for 3 months, so the highlights are going to be a challenge to deliver in a short period of time.
So you mentioned NLP, for example, and basically NLP is a name given to mental, linguistic, and behavioral techniques that enable us to change our state. And we all can see that the techniques work, whether it's Dr. Bandler or whether you're working with Dr. Tara or if you're doing NLP work with me. Clients can feel the subjective changes before and after a session. They know it works. They know that before, you couldn't go speak to someone or you couldn't speak in front of a group, and then you do, 20 minutes of NLP, and all of a sudden you feel totally different and you can actually get up in front of a group and public speak. Now, for me, I was interested, okay, what's actually happening in the brain to see how the brain was changing in that period of time. And I think that's what's really exciting for people where, I can bring people up like I did live on stage in a seminar. We can measure their baseline brainwave activity and then do an NLP technique. And then we can see the brainwaves changing in real time. And really what NLP is doing, it's helping your brain to access brainwave states that you don't get to normally. Right. So a lot of anxiety related problems are connected to the fact that our nervous systems are overstimulated, overstressed. So we have excessive amounts of beta wave activity, high beta, and that just causes you to be in that physiological stress state. And it's almost like you can't help it. And in an NLP session, what you're able to do is you're able to use mental techniques and linguistics to get the brain into an altered state. And we can see the brainwave patterns change. And I measure this. It's going to be in the book. It's going to be in the publications where literally within seconds, minutes, if not seconds, we can see the brainwave patterns like alpha wave production, theta wave production, in key centers of the brain, which modulate stress, like the temporal lobes. We can see them increasing and improving to correspond to the changes in one's mental state. So what we're doing is it's just like you go to the gym and you build your biceps, and I do a little bit of that, right? You build bigger biceps by doing bicep curls, right? You train your brain to produce more alpha waves, more theta waves by consistently training it to get into those states over and over and over again. And that's where you listening to this, if you have, any anxiety related problem or procrastination or hesitation, it's probably in your best interest to work with a practitioner who's very skilled, and they can help train your brain to get into those alpha wave states, theta wave states. And then once you've been there enough, then you can start to get there automatically on its own. The brain will generalize that. And for people who have any doubts or hesitations or are skeptical, I always love a good skeptic. I'm a natural skeptic myself. But then, you know what? It's always important to have an open mind, right? You can be dubious, but also be open at the same time.
Absolutely. Skepticism is good. Hey, guys. Studies are showing that 68% of people that watch podcasts regularly don't click the subscribe button. Do me a huge favor. If you like this content, click subscribe so other people know where to go for the cool stuff. Thank you. Because there's a lot of claims out there and you want to be able to separate out the wheat from the chaff.
There is. And I think it is really important that, when you're working with someone, that they actually live and exemplify and embody all that which they talk about. So they call it show and tell for a reason. First you show, then you talk about it, not the other way around.
I had a client who recently went to a Joe Dispenza event, and he's another person who's doing great jobs in measuring all this stuff. And the brainwaves before and after the event were just remarkably different. You can see how full and robust they are afterwards, and before they're, not. And when you have a health challenge that you're getting over, or any kind of a challenge, it's critical to get those beautiful brainwaves robust and how you'd like them to be. Chris, I don't know if you have slides that you want to share, or if not, that's fine. We've got a limited amount of time, so just hearing all the goodies that you've been through in the last blocks of time would be wonderful.
I mean, I'm working 18 to 20-hour days here, so you guys are gonna have to wait for the book for all the pretty pictures.
When is it coming out? Because 5,000 QEEG brain scans pre and post intervention is a gold mine.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have my own publications that are coming out. as well as um, co-authored books, which are specifically for NLP and NLP rewires and changes the brain, um, which will be released in the spring of 2026. Very exciting, just before the NLP seminars in Orlando. That is the deadline. That is when it will be released and ready. So yeah, the first release will probably be at the NLP seminars in the spring in Orlando, Florida. And I just want to mention one thing on mental health. Um, the key, the hallmark of mental health is creating brainwave balance across the major frequency spectrums. And everyone's brainwave production is unique. And that's why I do the brain scans, the assessments, to be able to see what your specific dominant brainwave patterns are. And then really the name of the game is to fill in the weak points, right? So if you're, deficient in theta ranges or alpha ranges, or I work with a lot of kids with ADHD, that's an example where there's not enough fast wave activity in the frontal lobes. Your job is to then find the techniques and interventions to create those brain waves that you're maybe deficient in. And for a lot of people, just because life's so fast-paced and stimulatory, most people are deficient in that alpha range, in that theta range. That's why nature therapy, that's why grounding works. That's why getting outside works, because it connects you to the earth, which natural resonance is in the alpha wave band. Your brain's an entrained machine that increases your alpha wave production. Then all of a sudden you go from being in your head, thinking, worrying, urgency, hurry state, to just being in the moment, in that Zen state. And I've measured this stuff surgically to make sure that I, not only get the results, but then I also understand how things are changing the brain. So
You
brain-wave balance.
you said something so valuable in one of the last webinar experiences we did, that if you just did one pointed focus for 10 minutes a day in total silence, that would be markedly beneficial for most people. Could you comment on that?
Yes. So everyone's heard of the term meditation. And of course, the question is, what is meditation? How do I do it? And if I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, how do I know if I'm actually meditating? Well, meditation basically is a name given to techniques that involve increasing your internal point of focus. So you're taking your focus from external things, from being your thoughts and your mind, and you're bringing it and channeling it to a single point. That could be a mantra, it could be focusing on your deep breathing. And what that does is it stimulates your frontal lobes, and it causes them to fire over and over and over and over again. And then they begin to deactivate. And that gets you to an altered pattern of neurological connectivity. And it's just like training, like we said, developing your body in the gym. You need to train your ability to sustain your point of attention, to sustain your frontal lobes activation for prolonged periods of time. That's the antidote to ADHD. That's the antidote to the scroll culture where everything's trying to grab your attention. You need to retrain your frontal lobes and increase their ability to sustain your point of concentration. So I'm a big fan of, because people are constantly and most of the time in their head thinking, instead of doing more thinking, we want to go from being in our head to being in our body. And that's where you can do single pointed, deep diaphragmatic breathing. This is what the Shaolin monk taught me. There was nothing cute, overly fancy. It's just like deep diaphragmatic breathing over and over and over again. Whenever your attention wanders, you just bring it right back to your breathing. And then there'll be a moment in time where your mind begins to quiet down. It's like the waves on a lake. As it gets later and later and later and approaches sunset, the waves start to quiet down. And finally, once night hits, it's a nice peace, tranquil, almost like a sheet of glass. You want to bring your mind to that same clear, calm, empty mind state. And when you do so day after day, a little 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, you'll be able to access that state on demand where you can just close your eyes. And the ability to shut off the world, to shut off thoughts, to shut off work, be able to change states is so critically important to healthy relationships, to a healthy life, and frankly, your own mental sanity.
Awesome. It almost sounds like we, in our scrolling culture, it's like we're not going to the gym and exercising our muscles with concentration. So it's like going to the gym with weak muscles. It takes a little effort to get that nice calm glass to appear. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you?
It's like you're going to the gym and all the sexiest people you've ever fantasized are literally walking past you each and every second from each and every direction. And all of a sudden you forget what you're there to do, which is lift weights. So you got to be able to focus, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what the distractions, no matter what the scenery around you happens to be.
Hey, Laura, it's great to see you on this call. I miss you.
Miss you.
I'd,
Amazing.
I'd love to open it up to some questions because that's the juiciest part about this opportunity to have an interface here with people like Chris. If anybody has a question, you can either raise your hand, type it in the chat box. But we all want to know how to have better, more robust, more balanced brainwaves so that we can function better in our 3D reality. So whatever questions you have, feel free to bring them up. Don't be shy.
Chris, what you're just saying is amazing because there's a lot of people that are in beta brainwaves and they're it's hard for them to concentrate. But I think what you just said is it really helps with relationships. It helps them focus on what's the other person saying to me, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem is if you're in your head, dissociated, thinking all the time, you're going to miss what's right in front of you, what the person in front of you say.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I ask most people, hey, what's the opposite of talking? They'll say it's listening. And those are people who don't listen much when they talk. They don't hear what they actually say. So this is actually one of the benefits of learning NLP is it increases your calibration and sensory acuity, where you can really listen and hear language more precisely, both when you're talking as well as when the other person's talking, so you can have deeper, more meaningful brain connection.
Ooh, I want to comment on that. I just worked with a couple. Both of them had been referred to me by their doctor, and they had been to couples therapy, which didn't help them. They both found it incredibly annoying. But by just going in and dealing with their own stuff and getting their own blocks out of the way, all of a sudden the relationship in the household improved. So
Wow.
there's a classic example of how that can happen. And repeatedly, I've had people come in to say, I have a problem with this person. I say, well, I can't fix the other person, but I can help you fix your stuff. And then as a result, you can watch that situation change. And I don't know exactly how it'll change, but it changes for the better. And it's wonderful to watch that process. Chris, do you want to comment on that? Because I'm sure you've run across that many times.
Well, when you change yourself, you change the world. And as the creators of NLP said, we don't act directly on the world, we act via our mental model of the world. And the map is not the territory. And the brain is a planning machine. What it does is it builds models of all past experiences, which it codes as memories, as well as has ideas and thoughts for the future. And those maps, they are the means through which everything we experience, everything we think is filtered. And you see, we can't change the world, but we can change how we filter it, to therefore change how we actually see it, and therefore change how we're able to perform. And that's where learning to control your thoughts, right? We talk about perspective, right? It's all about your point of view. Well, that's generated based on the mental images you have in your mind that filter everything that you see and perceive. And then we talked about brain waves, right? It's not only about beta waves being good or bad. It's way more sophisticated than that. It's okay. Where are the beta brainwaves? Okay, are they overly dominant in your temporal lobes, therefore creating hyper stress, irritability, quick to being triggered? Is there enough beta wave activity in your frontal lobes? If you don't have enough, you won't be able to focus, pay attention, or learn quickly. If you have too much, you have too many thoughts in your brain. You'll have busy brain. So how can you orchestrate that perfect balance? Now, we have hundreds of billions of neurons in our brain that are constantly firing, and a lot of them, their activity is based on how we've been programmed, based on the genetics we've been given from our parents. I've done brain scans through families, from children to mom to grandma. I've done it with my own family. And the one key thing we have available to us at all times is the power of our conscious mind. And our conscious mind is what directs the activity of the hundreds of billions of neurons in our brain. And I measure it in real time. I do it in front of a stage, in front of hundreds of people, or I do it privately one-on-one. we can see that as you change how you think, it changes how your brain fires, which changes your brainwave patterns, which then gets your brain to rewire over time. So learning to develop more control over your thoughts. And how do we think? Well, we think in the same ways that we sense and perceive the world because we use the same parts of our brain, the same neurology to do both. So we have four major lobes of the brain. We have the occipital lobes, which control visual processing at the back of the brain. We have the temporal lobes at the sides of the brain. These are like the wings of creativity. These are our auditory cortex, also play a big role in memory. We have our parietal lobes, which is kind of like the kinesthetic cortex, where somatosensory cortex is housed. Then we have our frontal lobes, which are like the CEO of the brain that regulate all our thoughts. And basically, we use those three primary lobes, the visual system, the auditory system, and the kinesthetics to think and perceive the world. And then the frontal lobes is kind of like the CEO trying to manage all that activity. So basically, we make mental images, both of the past as well as the future, and those can be still images or mental movies. Right. And this is where the qualities of those mental images, like the size, for example, will have a major impact on the brainwave response in the brain. And sometimes for people with PTSD or traumas, just by changing the size of the image or the memories in your mind, taking it from a big IMAX theater movie and bringing it down to a tiny little screen can produce a dramatic change in the brainwave response in the parts of your brain that control stress and memory. And this is really powerful. This is something I measure in real time. And if you can learn to develop more control of your thoughts, it can really change your life. Because when you think about it, all most people really need is you just need a little bit more brain power, a little bit more mental power, a little bit more willpower, and that can take you from being victimized by your thoughts in life to being in control of your life, in control of, how you behave, how you perform, how you respond to stress. And really, it's just that one small skill that can make a massive difference, learning how to control how you think.
Wow, those are such powerful tools you just described so well. The map is not the territory. Richard Bandler is famous for letting people know that, because we all think that the map in our brain is reality, and it's just this tiny little slice of reality that we've dumbed down, deleted, distorted, and generalized down to so that we can get through life. But a lot of times our map, most of the time, is not anywhere near the territory. And if we just change the map, then we change our experience of reality to a more real version of reality.
Well, you use an updated map. As you navigate the lands more and more, you realize, okay, this little map, old map I had isn't serving me. Now I need a new map to navigate the territory. And this isn't just a mental phenomenon. This is neurological, right? When you change the mental model you use to operate with, it profoundly changes how you feel, which changes the gut brain response. That's what a feeling is. A feeling are physical reactions that have already occurred in the gut brain, and they have certain properties, right? And just by changing top down the mental map, it will change the neurological response from the central nervous system to the gut brain, changing your dopamine levels, your serotonin levels, and changing how you feel and how you behave.
And this is what's so great about your work, because people used to think this was woo-woo or, questionable and not scientific, but you can't get any more scientific than showing when you change the map that the neurons change the way they fire, which changes the chemistry that your brain produces and releases, and gives you different physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, there are companies out there that are now making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars using the brain scan formula and format that I started pioneering 10 years ago. And just by being able to show people before and after brain scans, now all of a sudden their products are exploding because now, it's just not a woo-woo thing. Oh, I feel better, but I don't know how. But now people can actually see objective changes in the brain, and it's a powerful convincer.
So Nadia had a question. What do you think about Hertz music and also Om mantras and things like of that nature?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Hertz is basically the technical term for cycles per second. So when we're talking about brainwaves are defined by how many oscillations, how many cycles they have per second. So you have very slow wave brain waves like delta waves, which are like 0 to 3 hertz. So there'll be 3 oscillations per second. A theta wave is a little bit faster, but still slow, 4 to 8 hertz oscillations. And we can see it when I see on a brain scan that on the EEG, every brainwave has its own unique characteristic pattern. And for me, I find them quite attractive. When I'm measuring a brainwave and I see nice, beautiful, symmetrical alpha waves, it makes me happy to see. So, of course, the first thing would be, again, that's why I do assessments and scans to see how the brain's firing. You can kind of do a little internal mental check-in calibration. If you feel like you need a bit more relaxation, if you need a bit more memory consolidation, if you want to enhance your ability to visualize, be creative, you probably want to focus in on the theta range, alpha range, and you can use things like brainwave entrainment. Basically, how that works is you put on headphones, and basically the brain will produce what's called a frequency following response. So there'll be a frequency output going in from one ear, another output from another ear. Maybe it's like 11 hertz on one ear, 7 hertz in the other ear, and then the brain generates a 4 hertz frequency theta wave to make up the difference. So I'm a big fan of brainwave entrainment, and you can combine it with meditation and deep breathing to really fast track your meditation to get faster results, to get into theta states, alpha states more quickly. So big fan of that, to do that as a daily training, daily discipline. And that's how I started.
I have a alpha tape that you gave me. A tape. I'm dating myself. And a theta, and I have to say I'm partial to the theta, but I definitely you can feel the difference when you've spent a half an hour just listening to theta brainwave states.
For sure. Yeah, that's where we did the EEGs, we did the eyes open, eyes closed, and we see what the dominant patterns are, and then we feel like, okay, what specific frequencies your brain need more of, and that's where, when your brain, if it's a little bit low in theta and you give it that theta frequency, the brain is like, oh my God, it just eats it up because it's been waiting for it, it's been hungering for it, and it feels so good because it's exactly what the brain may have been missing. Not specifically in your case, but I'm talking about if someone's deficient in a certain frequency and you give the brain that frequency, it feels really good.
I'd love to also just sort of paint a picture for people, because you had somebody on stage with the cap on, with the gels and connected to all the electrical goings on, and then you walked them through different things, and we were all able to see on a huge screen how the brain waves changed.
Yeah.
And they're very dynamic. They're very quick to change. A lot of it requires a lot of skill and interpretation, because they do change so quickly, and you need to know what compartments of the brain are responsible for which functions in the body. So, but one thing that I took away from that was that, wow, every moment of every second of every day is profoundly affecting my brainwaves. And because we don't see that, on our cell phones as we're scrolling, or as we're on the freeway or whatever, we don't pay enough attention to this phenomena is going on. So literally everything that we're saying to ourselves, how we're managing our map of the world, that's so dramatically impacting our brainwaves. And that's what I'm excited about your book coming out, because it's really going to give people more ammunition that, oh, this isn't woo-woo. This is my brain, and this is the nutrition that I'm giving my brain each and every moment of each and every day. And these are the toxins that aren't serving me, that are throwing me out of balance, and I really, that doesn't serve me in my world.
Absolutely beautifully said. And that's where, toxins aren't only in our foods. The most, deleterious toxins are the ones in our mind. And we can see that if you just, pull up that doubtful voice or self-critical voice, or a voice that says you're not enough, I measure, and we can see in real time how profoundly that changes your brainwaves and the type of stress response it produces. But the cool thing is, like the gentleman on stage, we can also see how the brainwaves change when you smile, when you pull up a different thought, when you change the tonality of a voice in your mind, how powerfully that can change how your temporal lobes fire, right? When you pull up images that really excite you, that get you to hope and look forward to the future, we can see how that totally changes the neurological response in the brain. And then you know what? If you're curious to explore like a rapid hypnotic induction, like the guy on stage, I just, he's in a waking state 1 second, and then boom, the next second, put him in a trance, did hypnosis, and we could see the brainwave patterns immediately change. And I designed a new NLP technique called brainwave of choice. And I've been testing it with clients where if a client wants more alpha brainwaves, I'm literally using the NLP techniques to elicit, amplify, and create that brainwave pattern as fast as possible. And some of those results have been really, really exciting. And the results I found with NLP, just pure mental techniques alone, are second to none. There's no hack, no technology. Companies hire me to test their products, like the ones you put on the cell phone to protect the EMF. Nothing compares to the power of mental activity to change the brain. And that's what NLP really taps into.
So are you saying that how we manage our brainwaves can actually protect us from EMFs, which is a huge problem for some people?
Well, I mean, the best protection is elimination. So, you know what? You can be a Zen Buddhist, enlightened, brainiac monk, but if you are in, a terrible environment, um, it's not going to be the optimal situation. The best situation would be to change the environment and still be the enlightened brainiac, guru, monk, whatever you want to call it. So fixing the environment is really important. So elimination is number one. Now, for those of you who live in apartment buildings, live in cities and high dense EMF areas, you're not just going to pick up and leave. So that's where the next best option is protection. So basically, here's the problem with EMFs. This is what I tested and what I found, is that they are stimulatory. They are a biological stressor, however micro or macro. And I measure the changes in the brain. What they do is they increase fast wave beta and high beta in the ranges that are clinically associated with anxiety. And not only do they stimulate that fast wave production, they also produce a reduction in slower waves, like in the theta range, which are so vital for memory consolidation and also the replenishment of dopamine and catecholamines. Because when our brain gets to those slower wave states, that's when our catecholamines, like dopamine, replenish. So we actually need to slow down to speed up. And EMF also has the problem where it increases the leakiness of the blood-brain barrier, which thereby allows toxins in our food, industrial products, household products to get in and assault the deep structures of our brain. And that's a huge problem, on top of the fact that EMFs also affect the movement of ions, which are charged particles like calcium across the membranes, and that's what neurons use to signal. So EMFs are directly interfering with the signaling in our brain and causing a stimulatory effect. So they are a biological stressor.
And Laura can help me on this one. Joe Dispenza actually showed that when people did a lot of the meditation, got into these incredibly advanced brainwave states, they were much more resistant to COVID. Specifically because there was one protein that they measured that went up beautifully with all these practices. Laura, do you remember the name of that protein?
Serpin A5.
There we go, Serpin A5. I'm not sure if the medical paper has come out on that, but this is so exciting, the times that we're living in here, because again, people like Chris are taking this out of woo-woo into hardcore science, and anybody that's experienced it firsthand knows this. People that Chris and I have worked with that have had medical issues go away, migraine headaches, teeth grinding, whatever the issue. Insomnia is a big one. People tend to sleep so much better when the brainwaves get balanced and you're not constantly in high beta. Your brain actually gets the signal that, oh, this is sleep time and sleep time is healthy for me. It's actually protective. But we're living in such exciting times because and another wonderful experiment that Joe did, and Chris just highlighted it as well. When you focus on a certain thing, whether it's alpha waves or theta waves or the protein that Laura just mentioned, we can actually create it. Our brains don't even have to know how it's created. But as long as we give it the instruction that that's what we want it to do, it'll go ahead and do it for us. It's really quite a miracle factory. Any other questions? Love to get them in the chat box or raise your hand. Oh, Shirley's got a question. Let's take Shirley's. Shirley, do you want to turn your camera on and just ask, or just turn?
Well, I'm driving. So.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, don't take your eyes off the road. Go ahead and ask.
No. So thank you, Miss Tara. Mr. Chris, I have been going to about 4 neurologists from last January when I started having some symptoms that seemed like they kind of coincided with stroke symptoms. Left arm weakness, speech change, and weakness in the hand gripping. So I was labeled, I'm not going to claim it, I was labeled in my medical record with cortical basal syndrome. I was told by these neurologists that there's nothing that can be done because they don't have medicine and there's no way to operate on the cerebellum of the brain. One of them told me my cerebellum was shrinking. I know that meditating and changing your brain waves can change a lot of things in the body. I even went to a Dr. Joe's retreat last year in November at Marshall Island, hoping to get one of those brain scans, but he didn't have them available. But what I would like to ask you, Mr. Chris, is if someone wanted to get a brain scan and pay for it themselves, can they come to you, and where are you located?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is what I do in my private practice work. And, just so you know, I mean, you're mentioning, a lot of these medical topics. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't give medical advice. Just need to say that. But I do work with one-on-one private clients on those exact kind of cases, whether it's stroke cases or brain injury cases. And I typically I'll start off with a brain scan so I can see where the dysfunction is in the brain. Now, here's a key thing. If one has a stroke or they think they've had a stroke, it is important to go in and get, whether a CT scan or fMRI, so that way that you can look at the deep structures of the brain, structurally how the brain's firing. So that's the real benefit of the MRIs. So 100% you do that with your physician. And then the benefit of the EEG is we're able to measure functionally in real time how the outer part of the cortex, how it's firing. So we can basically see if there's performance, how that's been impaired or affected by potential stroke. And I just worked with a gentleman who likewise had micro strokes and had atrophy based on the MRIs, atrophies in the visual cortex, and that was impacting his vision. And I use neurotherapies in my practice that help to stimulate and modulate brainwave activity or brain activity. So I help to stimulate the occipitals while also doing some NLP processes to help use mental activity to stimulate those parts of the brain. And his vision improved by 25 to 30%. And I kept working with him week after week. And basically what happens is blood flow in the brain follows activity. So as we reactivate those centers of the brain, now more blood flow gets to those parts of the brain, more nutrients gets to those parts of the brain. And then those parts of the brain which have atrophied either from injury or from disuse or maybe just from age and wear and tear, now we can reactivate those parts of the brain, bring more blood flow, bring more nutrients, and re-stimulate them to improve their function. So really, this is an example where every brain's a little bit different. Can every brain be improved? Well, in my experience, every brain can be improved. It's just a matter of how far and how much and how dedicated one is to improve their brain. So yeah, absolutely. Surely You can do a brain scan assessment with me, and we could figure out a customized plan to help heal and rewire your brain. I'm currently working and located in Los Angeles right now. I also have my practice in Toronto, Canada.
Of course, all the good doctors or all the good people that know this stuff are always on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. I did fly to go see a chiropractor in California, so I'm willing to come because I get on these Zoom calls and I've known about Dr. Perry, and I hear about all these things, but it's like, okay, how do we as normal people get in touch with these specialists who can do these types of scans? Because they'll talk about the process just as we are today, and we understand that, but getting a scan is totally different. Because I can't find doctors here that'll do that. Not doctors, but specialists that'll do that. So I would love to come to your clinic and do this. I'm retired because I'm on disability now. They won't even let me work. I can't work. So
Well, your cerebellum. That controls physical muscle coordination, thought coordination. 40% of the neurons in the brain are housed in the cerebellum. It's called the little brain. So it's, absolutely vital. I work with a ton of autistic kids as well, and they have severe dysfunction in the cerebellum. And you see, the thing is, Shirley, it's not only doing a brain scan. It's then, okay, how do we use that information to then have actual interventions to then help re-stimulate, modulate, and balance the brain? And I think that's where the magic comes in, is I do both neurotherapies to help stimulate and balance the brain. But then when you combine it with the NLP as well, now we're using that huge variable, the mental activity, to help stimulate the desired changes in the brain. When you combine the two together, the neurological and the mental training, and then combine that with, customized optimal nutrition as well, now you have a three-headed approach that really can give your brain the stimulus to heal, balance, and optimize.
yes, all right. Well, I'm sure Dr. Perry will give your contact information at the end, hopefully.
Oh no, we can actually do that right now. Chris, how do people get in touch with you?
The best way would be to contact me through my website, www.thegamechangerchriswyllie.com. Just send me a message through the website. I'll get that. You can also email me at Chris, CHRIS, Wyllie, WYLLIE, at gamechanger.expert. And we can find a way and come up with a plan to help balance your brain. The main thing is that we're looking for improvement. And that's really what I shoot for. I use the brain scan to see where you're at and then design a program to help take you where you want to go.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Shirley, how did you feel before and after doing the Joe Dispenza event?
Well, honestly, I was actually there as a caregiver for another lady who did have 3 strokes. So I was basically helping her. Even though I was doing the meditations, it was a little bit of a distraction because I was there to help her mostly. So I would like to go back and just do it myself, but I haven't done that yet.
Now, Shirley, the best thing is if when we do a scan of the brain, I can actually design for you a specific meditation, specific NLP techniques that would be optimal for your unique brain. And
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Shirley, I love how you said you don't claim that. I love it. That was awesome.
Yes. Oh, I've been all over. I actually just got back from Mexico because I went to see doctors there, because the ones here in Maryland, they basically tell me, oh, your brain's not working right and we can't help you. But just because they can't give me medicine or do surgery does not mean that nothing can be done. It's just that it's not in their wheelhouse. So which is why I'm looking outside. So
Well,
thank you, Chris.
I'm glad you have the opportunity to get in touch with Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirley. I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I found over and over and over again that if, whatever form of stress you're living in, it's like having the alarm system go off in your house all the time, and then you're releasing all the stress hormones. You're functioning in the amygdala and the hippocampus, and that the mid prefrontal cortex is shut down. And just being in a non-optimal state with your immune system not functioning, your digestive system not functioning, your hormonal system not functioning because you're in some form of fight or flight, just by getting that corrected, so much can experience healing. And that's just been delicious and delightful to see happen over and over again. So anybody else have any questions?
Chris, you mentioned EMFs and protection. Do you unplug your Wi-Fi at night?
I do.
Yeah, I just started.
I mean, I was pretty hardcore. If I'm on my own, I mean, it depends where I'm at. In Canada, I mean, I'll absolutely turn the whole power to the house off. It's cold enough that the groceries in the fridge and stuff, they don't go bad. So I have a great sleep. It's like the whole street's lit up, and my house is a little bit pitch black.
That's great. You can really tell. I've visited friends that have got like all the EMF stuff, which really requires a lot of time and attention and awareness of detail. And you really feel a difference when you're in a non-EMF house.
Well, I mean, the best marker is to do in sleep is the best test. If you think that you are in an EMF dense location and it's impacting your sleep, the best thing you can do is take 2 to 3 days, go out to the country, get out to nature, and just notice how you sleep out in nature, right? Because a lot of people have difficulty, well, they don't dream, they're not getting REM sleep. Well, that's because you're causing the stimulatory effect. It's not enabling the brain to get into that state. So if you go out into nature and you do a little natural experiment, then all of a sudden you get 8 to 10 hours of super deep quality sleep, you have vivid dreams, then that's a sign that the environment is the problem, not your brain.
That's really great. But if you're in nature, I mean, say you're in a cabin, if the head of your bed is against the electrical panel for the whole cabin, you could still be in a high EMF dense area. I
didn't say anything about putting your head next to an electrical panel.
Yeah, but you could be doing it without knowing it. I have a little tri-field meter, which you can get on Amazon. It's not that expensive, and you can just go around and test where the EMFs are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
I mean, being in a cabin, even if there's electricity going through it, yeah, absolutely. You want to make sure your head is not proximal to not only the electrical panel, but you also can see where the outlets are and where the wires are in the wall. And you don't want to have your head next to or too adjacent to any wires running through the wall. So you kind of, position where you sleep and where you position your head, so that you're not next to right where those electrical outlets or where the wires are going through the wall.
Which includes your cell phone. Brenna, so nice to see you.
Hi, yes, sorry I was late to the call, but I will excitedly watch the recording, and I'm in the car, so I'm not on camera either. Question for you, Chris. And sorry, again, I missed your whole intro, but do you, in your practice, work with spinal cord injury or peripheral nerve injury? And if so, have you seen any success with any of your modalities that you offer?
I mean, for me, it would just be indirectly. So it would be working top down via the brain. So balancing, motor function, somatosensory function, parietal lobe function, gut function. I mean, I do use in my practice, I kind of really pioneered using multiple disciplines because each discipline enhances the efficacy of the others. So I would do the therapy work, and then I would have a client go in like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to then help deliver oxygen to those exact circuits of the brain that we stimulated. So basically doing the neurotherapy work to stimulate the desired circuits of the brain, create the desired brain balance, and then go in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to then deliver oxygen nutrients to those parts of the brain which have now been stimulated and activated. So that's the kind of work I do. That's more indirect. So that's where, practitioner synergies. So you have, someone who can directly work on that, like a physical body healer. And then you can combine that with the neurological training. It creates a nice dynamic balance.
Got you. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh yes, Shirley wanted. Yes, you'll all get the recording for the session, even if you were not able to make it. That's one of the benefits to registering. I'll just make a comment. When I'm working with people, I just ask them what emotions they're struggling with, and I get to the root of that going into their subconscious mind. And I find that if they're able to peel away the layers to whatever that emotion is, typically it's I'm not enough, guilt, anger, and they're often layered. So that's why I work with people over 90 days and peel away one layer at a time. And in that process, and very often people will say, I feel like my hard drive just got wiped clean of a virus, and they don't even know how it happened or what exactly happened, but just by Googling, I call it Googling the subconscious mind through the emotions. What is the emotion? And it's been something that's been there your whole life, which are the tough ones to get to, because if they get wired in as a baby, or as a toddler or as a young person, it's often very difficult to access. So I get people who say they've been through 20, 30, 40 years of therapy, and in just a few sessions, they're able to peel away those layers that have been there for their whole life. And if you're interested and just want to fill out 10 questions to get clarity about what it is you want to work with, you can go to consulttara.com or nashvillehealer.com. And yes, you will get the recording for this session. Any other last minute questions while we have this wealth of information here with us?
I think for people, Tara, based on what you just said, I think it's really important for people to understand that there's many ways to rewire your brain. There's many doorways in, and I think it's beneficial for people to explore all the different variables. Yes, you can do neurological training to balance your brain. Yes, you can look at the mental component. How could you change how you think to change your brain? But also diving into the emotionality and exploring that. That's also something I've tested, is just, the emotional work is profoundly influencing rewiring the brain. And I think to be a healthy, dynamic human being, not only to have mental health, but emotional health and physical health, is really beneficial for all of you listening to explore those different aspects of self. So that way, every variable is leading you to being the person you want to be.
And I think is it the book Atomic Habits, or one of those books where a lot of Olympic teams have gone and got Olympic gold just by making little adjustments, 1% here, 1% there, 2% there, and then they build on each other.
Oh yeah, any type of neurological mental training with athletes where we're dealing with fractions of a seconds and we're dealing with 0.00 percentage points, any little improvement there can make profound differences. So it's very exciting to work with kind of the high performance athletes. So I like to work, with high performers, as well as cases where there's severe dysregulation, because those are the examples where you really see the profound changes with even small tweaks and adjustments.
Absolutely. Any other questions? What would people like to know about their mind?
Well, while we're listening here and you guys are thinking of all your brain busting questions to ask me, I'm just going to start diving into Chris's brain do's and Chris's brain don'ts.
Love it.
Now, because we all have a negative orientation, we're going to start with the brain don'ts. Number 1, do not stick electronic devices anywhere near your head or your brain. I've scientifically measured that. Produces immediate drastic stress response in the brain. So if you're going to use your phone, hands free. If you're going to have your phone anywhere near you, at least have a cable wired headphones. Start to become more aware of the EMF environment in which you're in and how that impacts your state. The best way to know is just to change the environment, see how you feel. So really mitigate your EMF exposure. Next, be mindful of your light environment. So basically, all our artificial lights inside are in the blue dominant frequency range, which is stimulatory to the brain. And that's a major problem for for sleep is because we're constantly getting this blue light frequency exposure later in the day, impacting melatonin production, affecting sleep. And then also good sleep also starts with not only the absence of blue light at night, but the presence of actually UV light at the right time. And that would be in the morning. So if you get some morning sunlight exposure, helps to set your circadian rhythm, circadian clock. This is something that I learned from a neurosurgeon over a decade ago. And now people like Andrew Huberman are getting pretty well known and popular by popularizing the importance of circadian biology, which is, the blue light timing at the right time, the purple light, UV light at the right time. So get some morning sunlight exposure if you can, and then avoid excessive blue lights at night. Then number three, minimize the toxins in your food. Again, we have EMFs increasing the leakiness of the blood-brain barrier. So now you do not want to be eating foods which are loaded with neurotoxins. And that's where sodas, anything that comes in a bag, anything that has more than 1 to 3 ingredients is going to have some additives that are negatively impacting your brain. So you want to minimize your toxin exposure. Then number 4, you want to minimize those toxic thoughts. Really start to become more mindful of the thoughts that are percolating in your mind. And I kind of have a quote where it's not that we think 70,000 thoughts in a day, we think a few thoughts 70,000 times in a day. Our brain generalizes and repeat the same thoughts over and over again. So start to become more mindful of the thoughts that are dictating, controlling how you feel and behave. And then lastly, in terms of brain don'ts, be very mindful of the information that you are exposing your brain to. Unless you want to become something like you're watching, do not watch it, because we have mirror neurons, and whether you like it or not, you are becoming like that which you watch. So if you're sitting at home and you're watching soap operas, Young and the Restless, Bold and Beautiful, I mean, they're great and entertaining, but you will become like those actors if you're watching them. If you're watching silly, pointless, brainless, numbness TikTok videos, you will become more brainless. So you become that which you watch via our mirror neurons. And then the brain do's is get your brain nutrition, get your omega-3 fatty acids, your DHA, the king of brain nutrition, to help build those cell membranes and synapses. A lot of people have memory issues, brain fog, attention issues. You want to get acetylcholine. Again, dopamine gets all the press, but acetylcholine steals the show. That's going to be your governor of your brain speed, your thinking speed. So most people need more choline-rich foods. If you're vegetarian, you're definitely going to be deficient in choline, because choline is found in higher percentage in animal-based and especially marine-based seafood. Then you get your polyphenol-rich foods, your blueberries, your cacao, your turmeric. That helps to increase neurogenesis. And then in terms of brain do's, do some form of daily mental practice, concentration, build those frontal lobes, build your capacity to focus. That is the antidote to ADHD in a very distractible world. And I could keep going on and on and on, but also you got to mention, get out there and move your body. Because when your body's moving, your brain is grooving. And movement is one of the best ways to restore and stimulate dopamine levels in your brain, to help improve your motivation, improve your focus. You guys know you all feel great after going for a run or doing a workout or doing yoga, right? So getting some movement, right? Our bodies are designed to move. Is a horse really a horse if it doesn't run and gallop and express its true self? Well, we're the same way. We need to express our true self, and that involves movement. So those are just some basic Chris brain don'ts, brain do's. If you start to do more of the do's and less of the don'ts, you're going to have a happier, healthier, more balanced brain.
Love it. Thank you for wrapping that all up with a big freaking red bow on it. Well, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was great.
It was a pleasure sharing this time with you all.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. And reach out to us. We're on social media. And we really appreciate everybody being here today. Bye for now. This podcast is intended for the purpose of providing information and education. It does not provide advice and is not meant to be used for any self-diagnosis or the replacement of any kind of licensed professional. The creators and individuals appearing here do not endorse any specific tests, positions, medications, products, or procedures. The views and opinions are expressed in this podcast are of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.